developing a new appreciation for Donna?
Oh, I love Donna. I love Donna.
Okay, how about we do the prayer of elimination? Great God, in Jesus Christ, your beloved Son, we glimpse the image of your glory. Teach us to listen to his word, that we may hear your voice and follow in your holy way. Amen. Good morning. Voice already. Can you believe the weather? 46 when I was coming in today. What is this, the 19th of February? I haven't, of course I've been around too long, some today. But I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it's just been incredible. Each day the sun's out, I've been able to walk, and that always was special to me because I just need to get outside. Some people aren't that way, but I am. I just need to get outside. I'm a country boy, that's what I'll always be. It's wonderful to have you folks here this morning. That was just magnificent. Just magnificent. And you folks out there, just think about that. Here at this old country church, Ellington, we have that kind of the Bach and all of that, in our church. It's special for us. It really is. And so thank you. The 25th, next Friday, Saturday night, please come. I've whined about this and begged and pleaded. Enough, I'm done now. Just please come. We're going to have a good time, I hope. Okay, have you ever noticed that there are certain habits or beliefs that separate people into one camp or another? As soon as a certain topic comes up, people separate into one camp or another on any topic. For example, we got coffee drinkers, we got coffee haters. We got cat people, we got dog people. We got morning people, we got night people. We could start some serious divisions here if we kept on going, like maybe politics or religion. We divide into camps. But there's one more habit that divides people to separate into camps. It's the habit of reading a book all the way through to the end or reading the last chapter first. I was going to ask you who does what, but I'm not going to. Just decide in your own mind. Read the last chapter first or read the whole book through. Many of you peek at the beginning first so you know what the story's like. A couple of psychologists from USC San Diego did a study on this subject, and they found that those who read the end of the story first actually enjoyed the book story more than those who read the story from the beginning to the end. One of the psychologists who led the study says once people know the ending of a story, it becomes easier to process the information and gain a deeper understanding of the action of the story. On the other hand, knowing the end of the story can be frustrating to some people. In fact, a movie fan in Hong Kong was beaten up last year when he came out of a theater and began loudly announcing to the fans waiting in line for the next showing the end of the movie that they were just about to see. Not everyone likes to peek at the ending first. It spoils the experience. This morning is a very special Sunday in the life of the Christian church. It's Transfiguration Sunday, a day when God gives three of Jesus' disciples, Peter, James, and John, a peek at the end of the story. In this mountaintop moment, these disciples get a glimpse of Jesus' true identity and his true mission. 6 days before this story took place, Jesus confronted his disciples about their lack of faith. And then he asked them two pivotal questions that he asked us. Who do people say that I am? Then he asked them, and who do you say that I am? To the question who people do say that I am the Son of Man is, disciples answered, well, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But on the second question, who do you say that I am, everybody got really quiet all of a sudden. If they had cell phones back then, all the disciples were probably looking down at their cell phones, pretending they had some important text. But that is except for Peter. He's the only one to speak up. And he said, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. At this moment, Jesus blesses him by changing his name. The name Simon literally means to hear, or he has heard. The name Peter means rock. The rock on which God is building the worldwide church. that we are part of even today. Now that all sounds like a great story until we encounter the plot twist. Immediately after revealing to his disciples that he was the Messiah sent from God, Jesus told them he must go to Jerusalem, to contend with the religious leaders, be killed, and rise again after 3 days. This completely caught the disciples off guard. Peter tried to argue with Jesus, and it's easy to understand why. I mean, how could that be a part of the plan? Wasn't the Messiah supposed to lead a revolt against Rome and restore political power to the nation of Israel? I mean, that was what they understood that Messiah was to do for centuries. How did Jesus' death fit into that kind of story? It's then that our Bible passage today begins, and it's Matthew 17, 1 through 9. If you have your Bibles, I know many of you like to read after it. It's Matthew 17, 1 through 9, and here is the scripture that I'm talking about. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses, Elijah, talking with Jesus. That's the event. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. What he really wanted to do was to pour concrete to this experience. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, and he said, Get up, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Now this, of course, this fear is a natural human experience. That's the way we were created. Fear is a self-protecting mechanism built into every fiber of our being. It's helped us survive for centuries. You may remember the story of a 7-year-old who was thrilled when her parents took her to Disney World for the first time. She rode the Space Mountain roller coaster. I have no idea what that is, but it must be something. She rode it twice, loved every minute of it. The next year, they returned to Space Mountain. As they stood in line, though, she soberly studied the signs that warned about the ride's speed. Dad, she said to her father, waiting in line with her, I don't think I want to go. He asked her why. Why would she be nervous? She enjoyed the ride so much last year. She replied, well, this year I can read. Now she knows what to expect. A certain amount of fear is healthy, but some of us are missing some of the joy of living because unhealthy fear is dominating our lives. We spend hours in needless worry. We fear what others may think about us. We fear aging. We fear death. We fear people who are different from us. The number of ways fear can cripple us is numberless. Some of us are afraid to show that we are afraid, and as a result is anger and bitterness and prejudice and cynicism. You see, the bad attitude that many people have is simply their way of coping with fear. Oh, how we need to hear the voice of Jesus say to us, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Listen to Christ's words. That's what the voice said on the mountain. This is my son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. That should be the reason we come to this church each week, to listen to Christ's voice. Oh, I hope you take worship seriously. I really do. Some of us come to this place each week simply out of a sense of duty. I understand that. But that's a shame. You and I have the privilege of taking our needs, our relationships, our fears, our attitudes, and laying them at the altar of God. Then we listen for God's voice. And sometimes in the quietness of our own hearts, we hear Christ speak. And from this, we build a new attitude about life. Listen to him. Mike talks about baseball, and he's a fan, and so am I. Some of you baseball fans may remember a former Major League catcher and a TV personality by the name of Joe Garagiola. Remember Joe? Garagiola is a great storyteller. He tells a story about a baseball legend, Stan Musial. Know that name, don't you? Stan the Man, they always call him. Stan the Man. Musial came to plate in a critical game. The opposing pitcher in the game was young and nervous. Gary Jola was catching and he called for a fastball to be pitched to Musial. The pitcher shook his head. He didn't want to throw that pitch. Joe signaled for a curve. And again, the pitcher shook him off. Then he signaled for a changeup. Still, the pitcher hesitated. Gary Jola went out to the mound to talk to the young man, and he said, "I've called for every pitch in the book. What do you want to throw?" "Nothing," said the pitcher. "I just want to hold on to the ball as long as I can." Who could blame him? I mean, Stan Musial was a legendary hitter. But that's the way many of us are living our lives, holding as long as we can, holding on to our grudges, holding on to our resentments and our fears, because we're afraid to let go. Jesus is here today, folks. And he's saying to you and to me, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Listen to my voice. We're like those disciples, aren't we? We live afraid to let go. Now, most of us are able to make it through life because of a mountaintop experience. That's what I want to talk about now, mountaintop experience. God, a time in our lives, most of our lives, I think that is. As a matter of fact, most of us had that experience at some time. In fact, a recent Gallup poll reported that 85% of the people interviewed said that they had had a mystical experience with God. So most of us out here have had that experience when God has spoke to us in a very special way that we knew this was God. So certain is that we stake our lives on it. I want to share a moment with you, folks. This is my own story. All week I've been working on this sermon, and it may not show up, but I have. And I tried to decide, okay, do I tell my experience or not? I told this story only probably 3 or 4 times in my entire life. I may have said it here in some situation, I'm not quite sure. But I want to give you my experience so that you understand what I'm talking about, where I am coming from. This mountaintop experience, folks, is, I believe in many ways, is crucial to our lives. I've had many of those experiences, not just one time, I've had many. You know how I feel whenever I baptize someone, especially kids, and those are mountaintop experiences for me in many ways. But this experience that I'm talking about, it goes beyond that. And I have a feeling that many of you here have had this kind of experience if you just think back. That kind of experience really, we can always go back to it and know that this was special, and that because of that experience, I understand it, and I can understand God at a deeper level. My experience. Long time ago, I was going to school in Chicago. Well, I was working on going to school. I had to go every summer. I went for a month. I was farming, trying to get established in farming. This is the late 70s and early 80s. If you farmers out there know what that was like. That was during that time, and I had 3 children. We were trying to raise the kids, and I was going to school, and about everything else you can think of. I had 5 small churches on top of everything else. It was really a difficult time in my life. Anyway, Carol and I were trying to struggle and make ends meet and all of that. Anyway, with all that going on, in the middle of the night, I don't know what time it was, just in the middle of the night, I woke up, and our bedroom was like here, and I could look through a doorway, and in the doorway there was another room, and in that room opened up into another doorway into our dining room. And I just felt something, I wasn't alone. And I looked through that doorway, and on the other doorway standing was a figure. You want to say, well, it was Jesus. Well, I don't know that. I couldn't make out the face. All I know is it was very tall and wore one of the robe kind of things, that you wear. But the presence was there. It was a powerful thing. I mean, I've always read it in books and in the Bible and everything where today, they were afraid. They fell to the ground and were terrified. I wasn't afraid at all. It was just a powerful moment. And with all of that background that I've been telling you about, all the struggles going through and all of that, I at that moment in time, I knew it was going to be okay. Not that everything would work out perfectly the way I wanted it, but I knew that I wasn't alone. And it was a sense of peace that never left me. And I still look back at it today, and I look back at it with a sense of wonder at the same time, a sense of thankfulness that I had that experience, and I'll always treasure that experience. I don't know what happened next. I think I just went to sleep. And the figure, I guess, left. And that's my story. I hope that someday, if you haven't already had that experience, that you do have, you'll treasure it as I treasure it. And it'll always mean something to you. And it's always something you go back to. Would any of you like to share your experience? I guess I'm ready. Anybody? I know this is tough. I shouldn't have done all this. I have a feeling that I've done. I got more I can preach on if that's what you like me to do. Anybody else have an experience they'd like to talk about? If 85%, if that's true, 85% of you folks have a story. What's your story? You know what? I think I could wait you out, but I don't know.
I have one, Ron.
Do it, Mike.
You kind of go through life, kind of hop on, every day is a day. Well, it was April the 26th. I was after 27, 28 years working at the same place, driving home the same route. I'm headed home on 96 between Ursa and Quincy. Doing my normal thing, turn on my turn signal, and I look in my rearview mirror and I go, that fella behind me didn't even look. He is not stopping. And that was what registered in my head. And I'm at a dead stop, and he's probably exceeding 55 miles an hour. And he didn't look up till he was probably 10 foot from me. Jerks the steering wheel. He tattooed me pretty good, spun me sideways. And on 96, there's a lot of traffic coming out of Quincy going north at about 5:15 to 5:30. I was waiting on probably 12 or 14 cars. And I just thank God today that one of them won the semi. And he hit me, spun me sideways, and all those cars, probably the smallest car of those 12 was the one he hit me right in front of. And to this day, and until the day I die, I 100% believe that God was sitting beside me in that pickup truck. Because everybody walked away from it.
Wow.
And there was only one door that would open up on my pickup truck. And that was the driver's door. And there is no doubt, and you can argue with me all you want, but there is no doubt in my mind, God was in that passenger seat and he held me in that seat.
I believe it with all my heart. That's what I say. With my experience, you can, like you said, Mike, you can argue with me, you talk about it, and you give it all kinds of explanations of how that was. It was the stress of the moment, the stress of your life, and it was this, and it was that. I have my cue. Nobody can talk me out of it. I know what I saw, and I know the feelings that I had, and those are something that I treasure. Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Yes.
It sounds strange, but my baptism. I was a teenager when I was baptized, and I was going to a church. A friend of mine had invited me, and I'd been going, and they had a special speaker. We were going every evening to this special speaker, and I felt myself rise up out of that pew, and basically I felt like I floated to the front. Something pulled me forward that I needed to be up front. It was my time to be baptized.
Cool.
And to this day, that warm feeling that came over me, that float, it sounds strange when I say I floated, but I didn't remember walking up there. I feel like I was just literally pulled, and I felt that warming sensation over me from the time that the minister was talking about what he was gonna do and the experience of that baptism. I was immersed.
Oh, yeah.
Happened to be a church that immersed you
Sure.
in baptism. And I tell you what, that was the most uplifting moment in my life. And to this day, I feel that warmth, and I can reflect, like you said, on that figure. I mean, it was almost like there was nobody else in the room,
Yeah,
but that church was full of people.
cool. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You can always go back to that. It can strengthen your times. Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else? Okay, I understand how difficult it is here, but do this for me, will you? If you have a chance, take me aside and say, hey, Ron, I'd like to share with you my experience. Or if not me, somebody else, if you'd like to share with somebody else. Because I think it's important for us to share those times. I really do. I think it strengthens not only us, but it strengthens the other person as well. So share those times. I think they're special. I think they're God's gift to us. I really do. With that whole heart. God's gift to us. Anybody know what hymn it is? Yeah, 474. Please stand with me.